Views expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of WPSL. However, you are encouraged to like and share them on Facebook, Twitter, and of course to listen in live whenever we're doing this show. Whenever we're recording it, it's live on WPSL.com. But this program is a pre-recorded show to be aired on Saturday at around 11 a.m. and I think Monday night too. But it's time for the Sue Ellen Sanders Show with exciting guests and everything right here. Here's your host, Sue Ellen Sanders.
Welcome to the Sue Ellen Sanders Show. We're glad you're here. And we've got a guest today that I haven't seen in a long time. She also hasn't been on the air with me, although she's been here on the radio show before. And Wyn Burns is a person who has a passion and doesn't just sit back and let other people do things for her. Is that a good way to describe you, Wyn?
Yes, thank you, Sue Ellen.
She's also the founder and chief bottle washer and does everything for Creature Safe Place, the Wildlife Rehab and Exotic Rescue Center that is here on the Treasure Coast. And we're going to find out more details about what Creature Safe Place does as we go on with the show. So Wyn Burns is here with us, as well as her logistics director, who is Lori Lydia. So they're both here with me today, and we're going to talk a little bit about what type of creatures they help, as well as find out how you, my valued listener, can also help those creatures and also be part of a really fun event called the 12th Annual Creature Safe Place Wild and Crazy Auction that's coming up on March 17th. So it's a daytime event. If you're somebody who likes to celebrate St. Patrick's Day, you might recognize that date, or either way. But since it's a daytime event and it ends at 3 p.m., you can actually do that and still go out to an Irish pub. Or if you're somebody who just wants to celebrate during the daytime, then here's a place that you can celebrate. But we will talk more about the event itself, the Safe Place Wild and Crazy Auction coming up in just a few minutes. Let's get started talking about Creature Safe Place. Safe Place. Yes, it's hard to say it all together because I keep wanting to say safe space, and it's not. It's place. Because it is a place for creatures to go that to keep them safe. So how did it get started? How did it all come down?
Most people told me to do this when I was a little girl. I always had
Which is just a few years ago, yeah.
I've always loved animals. The reason that we are called Creature Safe Place, Sue Ellen, is I worked at Lawnwood Emergency Room as a tech for many years. And a lot of times I would spend time with people that just were at the end of their life. And one of the things I was going to do was to make them comfortable. And I asked them, what can I do for you? And they'd say, we just want a safe place. So I always worked with animals, and when I was able to start up a rehabilitation center for animals in crisis, we decided that Creature Safe Place would be a good start. And for 25 years now, it's been Creature Safe Place.
So 25 years of helping different types of creatures. And what type of creatures do you help?
We take care of all wildlife. If it's something that we're not skilled in, there is a huge network of wildlife rehabilitators, and we just get in touch with them and share the load. There's too much wildlife out there for any competition. So we all work together in a network for the common good of the animal and putting it back on its life path.
So who calls you and says, hey, there's a snake in my pool?
Everybody. Everybody does, from law enforcement to referrals from across the state, from word of mouth. More or less at this point, after 25 years, people know we're here. A lot of people don't, but it's because we're not open to the public. It's all about that animal, and it's not so much about the public for exhibition of an animal that's in trouble.
But at the same time, you do rely on the public to give you volunteer help and also to help when you're trying to raise funds, like the auction that we'll be talking about in a little bit.
We love our volunteers. Most of them are senior citizens. You'd be surprised how many people don't have anything to do after 65. And they love animals, and they have the time to work with them and take care of them. And many of our areas are cared for by our senior citizens locally.
Let's talk for just a minute about those areas and the type of animals that are part of them, because you're located in the middle of town off Oleander, but you have enough acreage where you can safely keep those animals.
We are actually located west of town on 5 acres, and we are
Oh,
building.
the Shriners Club is on Oleander.
And we're
Okay,
building the
yeah.
Wildlife Center as
Okay.
we talk. This started in my backyard. And we were very fortunate after 20 years in my backyard that we were donated enough of a donation to buy the property in the lots in front of us. And we started building a wildlife center with the idea that it would be passed on to St. Lucie County's children's children.
What was the direct impetus that first, said, okay, Winnie, you have to stop thinking about this and you have to do it?
I had one of those moments where I just said, gee, if I could just do this, if I could just be strong enough. I had been very sick. And I said, if I can just be strong enough to carry out what I think I'm supposed to be doing, that I would care for the creatures. That best things in life are free. The wildlife is free. And I would take care of that. And before I knew it, I had plunged into it. It all has to do with not doing what we do that matters. It's knowing that at this point in our lives, we're supposed to be doing it. Otherwise, I'd be cruising the Caribbean.
What was the first animal that you received?
Probably at
remember?
5 years old, a frog in my pocket.
Okay.
I've just always had an involvement with animals. I'm not a whisperer. I don't have anything special. I just have a way with them. I have medical knowledge, and I have the place. Everything else we do has to do with our community. It is from the time the animal is picked up to the time it gets to us, the person that calls, the person that donates, the person that helps me get it to the veterinarian. Really a small picture on this whole scope.
And you began in your house, in your area, and then expanded to the lots through donation, through money that was donated, and then you expanded to the lots around you. But your future plans include
Our future plans are to build this wildlife center, and when my husband and I aren't able to care for it anymore, that we pass it on. That's one of the reasons we're training Lori for logistics, to make sure that happens someday.
So Lori right now is being prepared to know everything about what is running what would you call it? Sanctuary?
Yes.
And to know how to handle the different types of animals. So let's get back to the animals for a minute. Creatures, you said. What kind of creatures are we talking about? You said, everything. Well, what does that entail when you're living on the Treasure Coast in Florida?
It comes seasonally. We started getting our first otter babies in this spring here in Fort Pierce right now. So we're going to start getting a lot of birds in, a lot of fawn. We raise about 20 baby deer a year. We release about 15 miles out of Fort Pierce on 2,100 acres. The goal is always to get the squirrel dancing on the treetop and the deer running ahead of the wind.
So to release it back
to
the
release it
nature.
back. We have a bobcat right now that'll be released in the next couple of weeks. The idea is to get it back out there. It is euphoric when you can send an animal back out on its life path that would have never made it without your assistance. It's a huge picture.
And when you say your assistants, are all the creatures that come to you, are they all injured, or some of them just displaced?
Some of them are displaced. During the holidays, we always get hit because more people are out. We don't get a holiday when normal people get a holiday. The more people that are out at the cookouts, the more animals are found. So it happens to do what is seasonal at that time. The birds, the seabirds. We had a pelican that came in yesterday, couldn't move because of hooks.
Ooh, that's so sad.
We just get so many different kind of animals. It's hard to zero in on one unless you ask me about one in one animal.
So you've mentioned the birds, the different types of birds. You've mentioned squirrels. You've mentioned otters. You've mentioned deer, the bobcat. What about, the reptile-y things?
We get reptiles in. We also live with animals, so we have reptiles. It's not my favorite thing, but it all has the same heartbeat. If you hook yourself up to a cardiac monitor and you hook up a frog to a cardiac monitor, you're going to see the same waves. You're going to see the same heartbeat. It's just going to be a different timing. We're all connected. That's what it's all about. We really are.
You do rescue frogs as well?
I rescue anything with a heartbeat. If I can. It's a little bit beyond me, the control of life and death, but it all matters.
And, you are the interface with other agencies if the creatures that are brought to you need medical attention. How do you handle that?
Our medical attention is addressed by Kelly's Animal Clinic, and he has taken care of our animals for 25 years. We have a lot of faith in Dr. Kelly. It's also other people that are trained. Because I was in the hospital business, a lot of physicians' assistants and nurses and retired nurses, they come out there now because they're retired and they still want to be in it.
And medical training is medical training, whether you're dealing with a human being or an animal. Actually, maybe sometimes the animal might be easier.
The medical training is a big plus, but it's also the caregiving.
Mm-hmm. Big attitude.
It's huge.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Lori, how long have you been involved?
I've actually been a part of this going on 3 years now.
And what was the reason you first decided to get involved with Creature Safe Place?
I've always been involved, kind of like Wyn has, with pets, the dogs and the cats and everything. And then one day I had the unexpected pleasure of meeting Wyn and hanging out with her for a couple of days on site and just seeing her triage a tortoise, or, I got to help remove a hawk off a glue board and then get to see it released later. I was hooked. Just being able to take an injured animal that might not make it otherwise, it's either been hit by a car or whatever its situation, and to bring it back and to release it back onto its life path, just that was it for me.
You mentioned triaging a tortoise, and there are a lot of different species of turtles and tortoises that are here on the Treasure Coast. And I remember back when we lived closer to Indian River Drive, we had those really big, what are they called? The sand tortoises, the really, really big ones?
The Florida gopher tortoise.
Or the gopher
Yes.
tortoises. And some of them were really old, but they couldn't be displaced, that you had to allow them to live where they were because that was their home.
It's still that way, Sue Ellen. The laws are very strict with what we do. That's why everybody doesn't have a blue jay in their bathroom. To have the privilege to do what we do with wildlife, we have to jump through a lot of hoops, and we have to be permitted by the federal government for the birds, and we have to be permitted by the state for mammals. And it's very intense to even to be able to what we do. And tortoises fall under that. We love putting them back together. It's really quite an accomplishment when you can put a tortoise shell back together. But the mitigation, I think that's the word we would look for here. The mitigation for tortoises is very intense because a tortoise looks for its home the rest of its life if it's displaced.
Ooh. Wow. That's really sad. So, you mentioned mammals, and I know that you mentioned the deer. What other type of mammals have you had a lot of experience with, either Lori or Wyn?
We have a lot of raccoons. We actually have 2 raccoon nannies. In order to handle mammals, we go through a series of shots called pre-exposure rabies shots, so that if we do get bit, we've got a little bit of a blanket of safety involved there. It's hard for me to just come up with the animals because they just keep coming
There's
in the
so
door.
many of them. Right?
Today, before we got here, Lori and I bandaged up a possum tail. You just never know what the day's going to start with. We don't just take wildlife; we take exotics too. So we've got the ferrets and the gerbils and the guinea pigs and the rabbits, a few chickens. You can't work for your creator and say, today I'll take your eagle and not your ant. So we have a cap off where we say we can't take any more, but we don't refuse an animal if we can help it. Once we get to that limit, 10 rabbit limit, if somebody's pet rabbit comes in number 11, we have to tell them we're sorry because we need room for another part of the property to take the wild rabbit that's in distress.
And what does your land look like? How do do you have different setups like almost a zoo?
Go ahead.
Set up in care areas. We have artesian water, so we have a constant flow of water that we grow our fish in. There's something nicer about giving a pelican a live fish than cutting up bionic bait. Our buildings are all solar, so all we need is a little bit of lighting and a heat source. So each area is set up for that individual area. The otter area is halfway into the water. The bobcat area has shelves and branches. Everything is scored down to that animal. The area where our squirrels are kept, it's full of branches. So each animal is taken care of on its own individual basis.
We try and keep each habitat as the animal would live in the wild so that it stays wild, because our goal, once again, is to get it back onto its life path where it belongs in nature. We don't do any exhibition. It's not a zoo or anything like that. So each little habitat, as we like to call them, we're trying to surround by hedges, and that's why we always can take donations of live plants and trees, so that each little section is its own little area, and the animal gets fed what it would find in the wild, so that it does stay wild, and once it's released can sustain itself.
So I'm glad you hit upon donations, because in addition to having volunteers, and you've got this great a volunteer corps, many of them who are senior citizens or retired healthcare professionals, and just a variety of people. But you also are looking for donations, such as Lori described. What are some of the other things you look for?
Well, we're always in need of cleaning supplies. You feed an animal, it's going to go to the bathroom. You're always picking up after something.
We had that discussion earlier.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Tools. Everything that's on the property was built by 100% donations. Not any money is spent. Everything is donated as much as possible. So we're always looking for any kind of tools, building supplies, live plants, as I said, seeds, anything that we can grow to assist and feed the animals naturally. Things of those nature.
And nobody gets paid a check. I've been doing it 25 years. It's just not even in our realm. 100% is donated, and 100% comes back in to Creature Safe Place. And we're really prideful of that. That a group of a few people can come together with a dream and make it work. We don't want any gain. I have a wonderful husband in all of this that really does much more than he ever gets credit for, and is literally building Creature Safe Place when I ask him for a honeydew.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a good board of directors, and they help us with the buildings. It's just growing day by day, and it has a good feel about it that we're going in the right direction. But it is 100% donation going in and coming out.
Let's talk a little bit about the relationships that you have with other organizations that you work with, that they might treat some type of wildlife and pass it along to you, like a vet's office, or you said you had a relationship with Kelly's Animal Hospital. But are there other organizations that are in the area that you also have a kind of a reciprocal agreement? I'll help you and you can help me too?
When you're in the field, as long as I have been now, you do meet people that you work with. We get a lot of deer from Sanibel Crow Clinic in Sanibel Island. We get animals from Nature's Conservancy. They send us deer. I specialize in deer, sandhill crane, and foxes, although I take care of everything. So SeaWorld brings us their sandhill cranes. Orlando, we get a lot of squirrels from Orlando. We work with Back to Nature Wildlife Center. I serve on the directors for the Florida Wildlife Rehabilitators Association. So I'm one of the links that more or less the glue, part of the glue, that a wonderful group of people have gotten together. And we have conferences each year. We give education. Anybody can do what I do. It's the idea of expressing your passion into it.
Is it a full-time?
It's beyond full-time.
Yeah.
It's like way beyond full-time.
Oh, yeah.
It's 24/7. When I have baby deer in, if you can imagine feeding 7 or 8 at a time, I'm up every 4 hours. I'm a lunatic.
So with babies, you get to nap when they're napping, but with animals, that isn't always true.
I go, and then I sit in the recliner and I pass out a few hours. And then I get back up. It's just what I'm supposed to be doing. I can't put it any other way. I'm retired, and I could be going to the luncheons, but this is what I'm doing. I think that's where I'm supposed to be.
It's not stressful when it's a passion. It's a pride, and it's a blessing that God let us do this.
And it's something that you're both driven to do, but you need help. You always need help. And that's one of the reasons why you're holding the auction that's coming up, which is actually your 12th annual auction. Who does, other than this fundraising auction that you do, who else helps to support? What organizations help to support?
We get grants, and we get people that mail in donations. It's a matter of getting people to believe in you. The land that we have Creature Safe Place on, somebody believed in us and gave us the donation to buy the land outright. It's a nickel and a dime. It's people that will just drop by and say, I like what you're doing. It's the person, it doesn't always take money. It's the person that brings a bag of scratch for the chickens. It's the person that brings carrots one day for the rabbits. You don't turn down anything, and you find out that people really do care.
With the different wildlife, since you're trying to keep them in their natural habitat, do you still need things like blankets and different comfortable things for the wildlife when it's cold?
Always. We put out a call on Facebook about 2 months ago when it was so cold and said we need heaters. And we needed a certain kind of heater because being on solar, we have to be watt-wise. And we put out a call that we really needed some heaters. And before we knew it, we had 10 new heaters. People want to help. You tell them what you need, and they will assist you.
And it's things that people don't think about, like the smaller animals. They have the heating packs that you crinkle and they stay warm, and you can put those under the animal, under a blanket.
Oh yeah, those are really cool.
And it doesn't cost any power or anything else. They're very inexpensive, but it's something that could save a life.
And that's something I first discovered them at a North soccer game when I was watching college soccer and freezing my butt off, and one of the other parents handed me one of those, and I looked at it and said, "And what do you want me?" Because it looks like a little
It doesn't look
baby
like it'll
sandbag.
do much,
Yeah,
right?
and they said just squeeze it and you'll release the heat, and it was like, whoa, that is really cool. And I know skiers use them a lot, and but those are the sort of things that you can put out there for the animals that will create the heat source.
Sue Ellen, we go through cases of those, and a lot of times people will go through Amazon Smile, and they'll send us a case. Day before yesterday, somebody locally sent me paper towels and 10 bottles of Lysol through Amazon Smile because they can also donate, and it's a nonprofit donation. So,
yeah, that's right.
yeah, there's just many. Just off this radio show, we will have contacts. There's no doubt about it. Thank you.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that. And let's talk a little bit about the auction, because it's your 12th annual event and you call it your Wild and Crazy auction. Why is it wild and crazy?
It's chaos. We found out wild and crazy is a little bit more explanatory than the
Yeah.
word chaos.
Yeah.
That doesn't begin to describe it either.
Lori,
It's the best time you'll ever have in your entire life. I
Lori
think.
will be the one to tell you about that because all
Okay.
she does is walks around and makes sure everybody's happy. That's her job at the auction.
Okay.
Well, it all starts, the event actually starts at 11 a.m., but people start lining up at the door probably a half hour or so before. So, people that haven't been there before, it's my job to explain what all the tickets stand for and what you can expect when you get in. And 3 years ago was my very first one. I had no idea. I had never been to an auction like this. And what happens is you walk into the Shriner Center, and it's just table after table. And this is another thing that people really help us with. They donate good, gently used items, and they're all lined up on the table, and they have cups in front of them. And at the door, for your donation, you're issued these tickets, and you put them in the cups of the items that you wish to obtain. And
So your $10 admission gets you some food, and you also get a certain amount of tickets to
correct,
put
you get
in.
a grand door prize ticket, which is a larger item, and then I believe it's 10, 20, I don't even
20
remember.
tickets.
20 tickets for the various items, and there's hundreds of them. I mean, some things you've never seen before, and some things like, oh, that's really expensive. I want that. And so you just put your ticket in, and then after a little while, we have live music. People go get their sandwiches, and then there's always free cookies. And these people that donate the cookies, I tell you, I must gain 5 pounds every year at this event. The
Great cookies. So this year's event for $10, the $10 admission gets you hot dog, chips, soda. It says $5 for the tickets. Is it more than that? Did you say?
No, you can buy additional tickets.
Oh, so and door prize tickets, and then you can purchase additional tickets. And if you bring a can of dog or cat food or a seed packet, you'll even get another free door prize ticket. So there'll be a lot of opportunities for winning. And I like the idea that you get to choose the auction item that you're interested in and put your kind of all your proverbial eggs in one basket, if you'd like.
Sue Ellen, if we see that you're not winning, one of our younger members, because everybody has kids and grandchildren now, one of them's going to come over on their little wooden horse and their little posse, and they're going to take you to the white elephant table, and you're still going to win because we're going to give you something off the white elephant table.
Aw, that's so sweet.
So nobody goes away a loser, and
Yeah.
you'd be surprised the amount of people that give us the same thing back that they won just because they had a good time for next year.
Yeah, that's great. And when you say 11 to 3 o'clock, do most people come and stay the whole time?
Yes.
They almost
she said
You almost
that
have to because there's so
definitively.
many items to look at, and a lot of companies will donate gift certificates to restaurants or oil changes and stuff. So there's so many items to look at, and then people are rotating in and out, and it's a really nice social event. So yeah, people stay the whole time.
Well, the event itself takes place at the St. Lucie County Shriners Club, and that's located at 4600 Oleander Avenue. It's the 12th annual Creatures Safe Place Wild and Crazy Auction, and it takes place on St. Patrick's Day during the daytime, beginning at 11 a.m. and lasting till 3 p.m. But you can, if you want, just stop by for a couple of hours too.
Correct.
Pay the entry, and then eat the food, listen to the music, put your tickets where they need to be. Do you have to be present to win?
Yes.
You do. So are the tickets pulled at the end of the...
They're pulled at the end of the event. Now, we have people that some people work, so they'll have their friend and they'll write their name and number on the, and their friend can claim the
your
prize
friends,
for
yeah.
them and then take it back
So,
home with you.
yeah.
But yeah, somebody needs to be there with that ticket to actually.
So the ticket needs to be there.
Correct.
Yeah, the other side of the ticket.
Every time one of our callers picks a cup up and takes the tickets out, he'll call that number, and we have runners, usually Girl Scouts going for their badges, will run that item to your table. So you don't even have to get up. You just have to come there and eat, enjoy the music, drop your tickets, and win.
What type of music do you have that's going to be going on?
We have a very good friend of ours, Tim Hutchison, and he used to assist the Kingston Trio at times. He
cool,
was
yeah.
in and out of that, and he comes with his wife, and they set up, and they help us year round. They're one of our volunteers, and Tim gets up there and plays music. So while you're dropping your tickets, you're kind of bebopping around the whole place.
So how would you describe, what type of music would you describe it?
Great.
It would appeal to almost everyone.
Yes.
Okay. Well, good. Again, that is coming up March 17th, and you'll have plenty of opportunity. Can people purchase tickets ahead of time, or you just buy them at the door?
You buy them at the door.
So just as long as you put it on your calendar, then show up and you purchase your tickets. If people who are listening want to get more information about Creatures Safe Place, you have a website that they could go to.
This number.
Well, the phone number, yes, but you know, in today's day and age, there's a lot of people who like to see the organization and what the organization is all about, and you know, you can go to www.creaturesafeplace.org and you get the information that you need.
Yes, we're also on Facebook.
You are on Facebook.
Yes.
So that's another easy way to share information about the Wild and Crazy auction, as well as share information about the organization.
We're on YouTube. You can go to
Oh,
YouTube,
cool.
and there are little musical videos of the animals that come in to see us.
Are the animals dancing?
No, but they are they are promos of the little cuties that'll melt
Okay.
your heart.
Okay. Who are the animals that you have featured on YouTube right now? Can you remember any of them offhand?
Just a lot of animals that were photogenic, and musical play, and it'll throw them up one at a time. Some of them are dogs and cats. Some of them are chickens. You know, it's everything. It's everything that comes to us. Well, we can't say that I won't take this animal and I'll take this one. So, you know, I don't like spiders because they sneak up on me. But, you know, if one comes in, we're gonna get it a fly. We just look at it like that.
Do you seriously also take ants? You don't. Please tell me. Because
Well,
you mentioned ants before.
I don't care
It
for
just
'em.
seems like
I don't
a
care
little
for them,
over the top.
But you know what? I'm 66 years old, and I would love an ant farm. I just, different people like different things. I like growing skin and stopping bleeding, and I like maggots. I just do.
Well, I won't be sending my maggots to you, and hopefully I
but-
won't have them again. I only had them once.
It sounds pretty coarse,
Yeah.
but if you do what I do, and Lori does,
Nature's debriefing.
it's life. It's about life in general, and we all have it. We all share this world. I try not to be fanatical about it, but I wake up every morning in a treehouse with a eccentric older man and 10 dogs and a capybara. My morning starts out
A
pretty bizarre.
capybara. What is a capybara?
It's the world's largest rodent. It looks like a 100-pound giant hamster.
It does. They're really cool.
Do any of the creatures bite you?
I always
Oh, don't show me the bites. That's
I
okay.
always-
She's
We
looking
tried
at her
really hard to
arms.
answer that
I know.
no.
Whenever I talk to bird people, I always start off my conversation saying, you can always tell the bird people from the wildlife rehabilitation people, because the bird people have poop on their shoulders, but the wildlife rehabilitators have scars on their arms.
Okay.
After you do this a long time, you really work at not getting hurt. You kind of know how to handle an animal.
For
I'm
one
not-
thing, you wear long sleeves, right?
Well, you're just careful, and even though like today's possum was the sweetest possum in the world, don't stick your finger in its mouth. It's just a matter of respecting that creature that's in front of you. They are wild, and we want them to be wild. It's inappropriate for a wildlife to be tame. So we work to keep them wild. That's a really hard part to do, so that we can reintroduce them to their own universe.
Well, because if you tame them and get them to follow your direction, then they're not going to survive when you try to acclimate them back into their habitat.
Correct, 100% true. And one of the first things I started when I started volunteering my time with Wyn is she taught me that every creature, just like a human, has a defense mechanism. And you have to, when you're approaching an injured animal, think about, okay, how is it going to try and defend itself? And then you can smartly and safely approach it in the right manner so that neither you or the animal gets further injured.
Do you find yourself turning to the internet sometimes when you have a creature that you might not be completely familiar with, or when one of the creature's behaviors is not something you're familiar with?
We share our knowledge with other rehabilitators. We have a fantastic relationship with many, many wildlife veterinarians. All you have to do is make a phone call. The internet is very important, but everybody that writes a website is an expert. I think
Yeah.
I'm an expert because I
Yeah.
have a website.
Yeah.
But it's the simple things that you forget. The wildlife community out there is huge, and it's universal. So if you ever have an issue at all, the first thing you do is get on the phone to somebody. Hey, I heard you had something like this a few years ago. What did you do?
When do you know that the wildlife is dangerous and it's not a creature that you can help? Is there ever a point where you know that?
Yes, there are two things. First is the legal. We are to have the privilege of what we do. We are told what we can save and what we can't. Really, because it has to be able to survive out there.
So let's talk about basically what can you save and what can't you, or just give us the highlights of what can't you save.
One of the easiest things is, and we get calls about this, are one-legged birds. Well, if one-legged bird can survive for a while, but if you go home today and you stand and do your dishes on one leg, you're going to find out your good leg is going to start giving out on you. So we're told anything that requires amputation above the knee, it has to be euthanized. And the public will not understand that. But once you do this for a while, you do understand it, because that bird's got to be able to kick off to fly.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be able to go and find its food. Can you imagine, Sue Ellen, how many calories it takes to flap your wings?
No,
So
I can't.
We also have to be able to get away from other predators.
That's an
Yes.
interesting question. And I'll have to pose that for my high school students tomorrow in class, because I can't imagine.
Can you imagine being a big sandhill crane with one leg in St. Lucie County, and you can't get your wings flapping hard enough underneath you because your good leg, your leg you have left, does not have any more oomph to get you up in the sky?
yeah.
And that's what you do. You fly literally with the wind beneath your wings.
Well, the sandhill cranes that I see that are like walking around in the neighborhood across from me, they don't seem to go up very high when they fly. They're just like kind of.
Unless you have like 6 or more sandhill cranes, they're not migrating through here. These are St. Lucie County's pets. They run out in front of cars and get hit because people feed them, and they don't know what a car is. So they see people, food, and they run out, they get hurt. They don't move out of the way very much because they're so humanized. A migrating sandhill crane wants to kill you. They're a different bird altogether.
Oh, so it's a good thing that they're not the ones that are in the neighborhoods.
Every once in a while we'll get a few that are wild, but you can always tell if they're from this area.
Yeah, I had an incident about a month ago. I was running with the dog in the neighborhood across from us, and there were like a group of 4 or 5 sandhill cranes, and they just didn't understand that I was just running in the direction that they were in. And so I think they thought I was chasing them, and I wasn't. I was just running in that direction, and of course the dog, added to the excitement. But I finally had to turn around and go the other way. I was so frustrated because I didn't want to be scaring them, and they were making all sorts of noises. So I had to turn around and go down a different side street. So and of course the dog thought it was so much fun. He doesn't understand that the sandhill cranes aren't. You got to wonder through the eyes of the animals what they see and what they think.
Well, that's what they're supposed to do. That's when people say, I've got a rabbit, my cat got it. Well, that's what they're supposed to do. People need to be a little bit more caring about their animal if it's out there, especially in the spring. We more or less got to share this. We got to share the world with them. It's not, you can't listen to the talk, well, they were here first anymore. Now we're all here together. So it's a matter of, I always tell people the most important part of what I do is teaching people how important compassion and integrity is. We have dropped the ball teaching compassion in this day and age. I see it every day. I know there are people out there that are very caring, but you're not born with compassion. It is something that somebody gifts to you. And for that reason, that person that was very important in your life remains in your life even when they're gone because of that gift of compassion and integrity. You're a teacher, Sue Ellen, you see it every day. Integrity is so big in our lives, in our growing spirits. And compassion is what you love from. It's the seed of love.
And that's probably one of the concepts that is the most difficult to teach. You really have to model it more than actively teach it.
I see it every day when somebody brings me a little mouse that doesn't even have fur on it, and they apologize because they're there. And I say, don't apologize for this. You have the gift of compassion. Thank that person. And if they're not alive, thank them anyways. It's what fuels us. It's what makes us go.
How do you feel about, and Easter is not far in the future now, and you know what I'm going to ask. How do you feel about the people who are giving their children bunnies as pets?
I only wish that they read the books first, because like we were saying before, when the bunny cages are full, there are no more bunnies coming in, and I get so many calls 6 weeks after Easter. When that rooster starts pooping in the kitchen, I can't only take one rooster. They want to kill each other. it's kind of a sad situation because it's a novelty animal. And when you have novelty animals, they're just as important as the horse, the gift of the horse. But again, it's that compassion rule coming back into it.
So they need to read about the care of the rabbit before, because they get their kids those baby bunnies.
And they're so cute.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. They're so cute, but people don't realize how big they can get, how much care they need, how much they can poop. You know, you can't take a bunny out for
How
a walk.
much they can recreate.
Right, exactly. So they really need to think, is their child going to be able to care for this long term? Because it's not something that you get for a day, a week, a month, and then you get tired of it and you get rid of it. It's a living being.
Children, one of the things that's tough with children is they have to learn how to care for an animal. So if that child comes home and the mother says, you're not going outside to play until you take care of that rabbit, that child gets an animosity towards that animal. You're not going out until you change the dog's water. It doesn't matter what animal is. But the thing is, we have to teach our children, I think your dog or your rabbit needs a drink. Not because you have to do this before you can do something. It's thirsty.
But they're depending
They're
on
hungry.
You. Yeah.
Exactly.
They
And
need you
that's
to
where the
fill
ball
their
gets
needs.
dropped. Yeah.
Yeah. I can understand that. How about the opposite? How about those baby bunnies that you see in the neighborhood? And are those the type of bunnies that you can capture and take home to domesticate?
Wild rabbits are the hardest of all wildlife to keep alive. They have a special part of them that dies of stress, not from the cat bite or the dog attack. They die from stress. They can will it onto themselves. It's called stress capture myopathy, and it makes any animal that flees and forage can have it and die of stress, like the deer, like the gazelle, the rabbit. Any animal that flees and forages can literally will themselves to die because they're at the bottom of the food chain. They do not make good pets.
Because I can remember when my kids were little, and we always seasonally have the baby bunnies in the neighborhood, and one of them who had been abandoned was taken in by one of my daughter's friends, and she was maybe 8 or 10 years old, and she owned the baby rabbit only lasted a couple days, and the little girl thought she was saving it, when in fact she was
Good people
Yeah.
with good intentions making the wrong decisions. And that's what we're here to help them. We're not just here to paste the animal together. We want to work with the public. We want to make this work for the animals. How blessed we are to have this wildlife around us. St. Lucie County is gorgeous, and we have a lot of wildlife.
And one of the things, too, is people need to learn, just because the animal seems abandoned, it's not always necessarily true. Sometimes, and Wyn can talk better about that, sometimes it's better to leave it where it is and let the mother come back for it, that the mother has gone to forage for food or
because how do
something.
you know that the mother is not coming back? And then
Correct.
once you move it or you touch it, the mother may not want any part of it.
Correct.
This is true. The mother's always best for the babies. Let's face it, Suella, we rule the world. We do.
Do you see that happen where people bring in babies that are like birds in a nest or bunnies? What is a bunny nest called?
Bunny nest.
Okay.
we hope they call us first
Yeah.
so we can talk them into leaving the animal. We hope they call us. But if they can't and they bring it, we're going to address it because they've driven out there and they've given their time to this creature and they want to help it.
Once they touch it, once they move it, is it true that the mom won't come back?
Mother's love is so much stronger than that.
Yeah,
You know,
so-
Call of the Wild isn't just a book.
It's always
It's so strong.
Yeah, it's always best, though, before you touch any wild animal, to call somebody in the know. I mean, you can give out our number, because there's a lot of times that they just don't need to bring them in.
And of course, the number here at Creature Safe Place is 772-468-6616. And you could call and leave a message if somebody doesn't answer, which probably you don't carry your phones around with you everywhere. And you're, as you said, cleaning up poop or taking care of animals. People, you can call and get information and know ahead of time what you need to do. We're also urging you, if you want to be a volunteer at the Creature Safe Place, that you could call or you could go to the website www.creaturesafeplace.org or look for Creature Safe Place on Facebook.
If we can't help you, Sue Ellen, we'll find somebody that can. It's that simple.
So it's kind of like you're the 211 for animals.
Well, I think any other rehabilitation sanctuary would be just like that.
Yeah.
We are all out there for the same common cause.
Awesome. And, of course, the Wild and Crazy auction coming up on Saturday, March 17th, right around the corner. It's the 12th annual auction, and it's a fundraiser for the Creature Safe Place, and all the money that you spend, the $10 entry, and then additional tickets and anything else that you purchase there is all going to go toward the care and feeding and health of the wild animals that you take care of.
Yes, it is.
100% goes back into Creature Safe Place.
100% is donated and 100% goes back to the animals.
We mentioned also that there's different items that you're always in need of, and people can, buy them on Amazon, have them sent directly to you, or they could drop them off to you. Again, the phone number for Creature Safe Place is 468-6616. I've had with me today Wyn Burns, who is the founder of Creature Safe Place, and Lori Lydia, who handles logistics for it. Thank you, ladies, very much for joining me today.
Thank you.
We'll be back here next week with more. Have a great day.
You've been listening to the Sue Ellen Sanders Show. Video archives of this program can be found on YouTube under WPSL TV. This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.